Welcome back to Let's Play Pokémon FireRed, and today we're going through Viridian Forest, which is our first trainer route, which requires some explanation for the way I will be handling this playthrough in terms of trainer routes. For starters, and a lot of you probably aren't going to like this, but I'm using cheat codes. I'm using a cheat to make sure I won't run into any wild Pokémon while walking through the tall grass. Now, as I said in part 1, that makes this playthrough not entirely legit. But the reason I'm doing this is because if I did run into any wild Pokemon, I would just run away from the battle and then edit it out to save time. This way the playthrough is a little bit more streamlined. I won't have to constantly edit things out, and you won't have to look at any weird transitions, then be brought to the overworld and then the beginning of a battle, but then back to the overworld because I actually didn't show off the battle. So in terms of the playthrough, it doesn't really make a difference, except I'm not gonna showcase how often you're gonna run into random battles when you're going through a grass or a cave. Which is why I made sure to point it out during part 1, where we did still run into random battles. But from here on out, no more, which is not what it's gonna be if you're gonna do a playthrough without cheats. But, well, I'm doing it with cheats, just for the sake of doing a let's play and having, again, things more streamlined. So that is one important part of how I'm handling playthroughs. The other one is the trainers itself. So you noticed we are now in a trainer battle. When a Pokemon trainer sees us, it will challenge us to a battle we can't refuse, and once we're in that battle, we also can't choose to run away. We have to defeat this trainer once he looks at us. So that is what a trainer battle is. However, that's another thing I'm not doing very legit in this playthrough. You may notice my Pokemon are of higher levels. That's because I already went through Viridian Forest and fought all the trainers I don't want to show off. The part I didn't record. Then I went back to the beginning of Viridian Forest, and that's what you're looking at right now. This is where I go through the route and actually fighting the trainers I do want to show off on camera. So this way I don't have to waste time showing off all the trainers, but I will still get all of the experience. And once again, it's to make this playthrough more streamlined and just to save time, because this playthrough is already long as it is. So I just made sure I prepared and don't have to show off anything that gets really uninteresting after a while. I mean, if we did fight all the trainers so I could get all the experience, we would be here for hours on end, and that's just not fun for doing a playthrough. So I'm sorry if you just don't like my let's play style. But that is just how I prefer to do things, so try to keep that in mind if you're gonna watch the rest of this playthrough. Because one, whenever we're about to go through a trainer route, it's technically my second time going there, and I already fought most of the trainers, and you notice my levels have increased. And I also won't be running into any random battles like you normally would. So that is something important about this whole playthrough. I just wanted you to keep in mind and get out of the way. Speaking of which, there's also one other thing I should still explain about the world of Pokemon, and that is, we're coming up to a Kakuna. This Kakuna was once a Weedle. When you train a certain Pokemon to a certain level, it will evolve. Its design will change, it will be stronger, and sometimes will even have a new typing to it. You know, just like a caterpillar would become a Kakuna, and then it will grow into a butterfly and gain the ability to fly. Pokemon will never have more than 3 stages of evolution, but sometimes a Pokemon can have a different evolutionary path, meaning it will become either this one or that one, so it does have multiple evolutions, but they're still within the same stage. And there are Pokemon that only evolve once, like Mankey, or Pokemons that just don't evolve at all. Most Pokemon will evolve by reaching a certain level, however not all Pokemon. For example, Pikachu here, I can train him to level 99 and he still won't evolve. He actually needs a certain item to evolve. And then there are also lots of other Pokemon with different ways of evolving them, but that's all stuff I'll get into as we find those Pokemon. So now for something else. I just picked up a Pokeball on the ground, but the item itself actually isn't a Pokeball. What was inside it was an antidote. What exactly is an antidote? Well, you may notice during the last battle there was a Weedle that kept using the move Poison Sting. After a while, that suddenly gave an effect on my Mankey. The words PSN appeared, and every turn it lost a little bit of health with this purple effect to it. That is because the move that Weedle was using, Poison Sting, which by the way is a poison type attack, also has a small chance of causing a status effect by the name of Poison. Being poisoned not only causes the Pokemon to lose health during battle, it also causes the Pokemon to lose health if you're walking around in the overworld. So the antidote item we just picked up, if you use it on a Pokemon, it will be cured of being poisoned. So that is our first status effect of the game. And there are actually 2 kinds of status effects. One of them are ones that stay on you even if you exit the battle, like poison, and a few others we'll be running into. And then there are sort of invisible status effects. You will still notice the effects during the battle, but they will be gone after the battle, and they actually don't place some sort of icon on your health bar. And just to give an example of one of those invisible status effects, Confusion. You will still clearly notice the effects of it during the battle, but once you exit the battle, Confusion is completely cured. And as I mentioned in part 1, the same rules applies for status lowering moves, like lower accuracy or lower defense. They will all be gone when you exit the battle, so don't worry about that. But the visible ones, like Poison, will actually carry over to the next battle. And Poison is the only one that actually has effect during the overworld, all the others don't really do anything if you're just walking around. But we'll be seeing all kinds of other status effects later on in the game. There's actually a house in Viridian City and you can go in there to, I think it's sort of a Pokemon school, and you can read about the different status effects in the game. Only the visible ones though. Speaking of status moves, this is a Caterpie, sort of a counterpart of Weedle. They're not actually part of the same evolutionary line, but they still have similar evolutionary stages. They will both turn into cocoons and then into things that fly. Then again, by that logic, you can compare Salamence to a Butterfree. But anyway, he's using String Shot, which lowers our speed for this battle, so he will be able to move first before we get to move. Having higher speed can be essential during competitive battle, but it's not really that big of a deal to not be able to move first in most cases. And we also learn to move Withdrawn, which will increase our defense against physical attacks. And speaking of new moves, Pikachu, or Mascot over here, also learned a new move while I was fighting trainers off screen. He learned Thunder Wave, which doesn't do any damage, but it causes a status effect on the opponent by the name of Paralysis. Paralysis is very useful as it does 3 things. 1, it lowers the opponent's speed. Second, it actually makes a Pokemon easier to capture, so that is very useful if you're trying to catch Pokemon. And third, it will actually cause a Pokemon to have a 25% chance that it won't be allowed to use its move. So instead of doing the attack it tried to use, it will say Metapod is paralyzed and couldn't move. Oh, but wait a minute, Metapod is no longer paralyzed and the trainer didn't even use an item. What happened there? That is because Generation 3 of Pokemon introduces something new, and that is abilities. Every Pokemon has an ability assigned to it, and they have all kinds of different abilities with different kinds of effects, and you won't even have to select them, they will automatically take effect during the appropriate situation. For example, the Metapod we were just fighting has the ability Shed Skin. Shed Skin makes it that every few turns the Pokemon will automatically cure itself from any status condition it might have. Well, only the visible status condition like paralysis or poison. And again, there are so many different things abilities can do, so just to give another example, Mascot the Pikachu has the ability Static. Static makes it that whenever an opponent hits my Pikachu, it has a small chance of becoming paralyzed. However, this is only the case with contact making moves, and that's another invisible attribute that attacks have, whether they make contact or not. And contact can also have different kinds of effects, like the example I just mentioned, like if a Pokemon doesn't use a contact making move on my Pikachu, the static chance won't trigger. So yeah. I told you there's gonna be a lot of explaining in this playthrough just because Pokemon has so many things that it can explain, but we are now in Pewter City, which is the city of our first gym battle. One thing I forgot to mention in part 1 is that every gym specializes in a certain type. For example, the gym of Pewter City here specializes in rock type Pokemon. However, they also use a lot of ground type Pokemon, which is actually a nice segue to talk about dual type Pokemon, Pokemon that have 2 types. As I mentioned in part 1, every type of attack can have a different effect on every type of Pokemon. Meaning that becomes even more important when you're fighting Pokemon with 2 types, or dual type Pokemon as they're called. For example, the gym leader here uses rock and ground type Pokemon. Now, rock type Pokemon are weak to water type attacks, and ground type Pokemon are weak to water type attacks, meaning if you use just one water type attack, it's gonna do a lot of damage to a Pokemon that is both those types. However, this also works the other way around. For example, grass type Pokemon are resistant to water type attacks, so let's just say you're fighting a rock grass type Pokemon, one half is weak to it, the other one is resistant to it. Those two cancel each other out, so the attack will just be normal damage. Also, what I mentioned about being double weak to certain types of attack, a Pokemon can also be double resistant to certain types of attack. So what it comes down to is that dual type Pokemons will have their advantages of being resistant to more type of attacks, but also their disadvantages of being weak to more types of attacks. So that pretty much covers dual type Pokemon. So let's talk about the gym battles. Every gym has a gym leader, which is pretty much your boss. Defeat him and you get the badge and you can move on to the next part of the game. However, gyms also have normal trainers inside them. Sometimes you have to fight them and sometimes you can choose to ignore one. The one I'm fighting right now you don't have to fight. You can just walk past him and just go straight to the gym leader. However, I want the experience, and if you fight the gym leader before fighting the trainer, you can't fight the trainer anymore. So I'm fighting this trainer for the experience before I get to Brock himself. Brock is pretty much Rock with a B in front of it because he uses rock type Pokemon, because all the gym leaders have bad puns in their names. For the gyms I use the same rules as with the trainer routes, where I don't fight every single trainer. Well, I do fight every single trainer, but I don't show off every single one. I'm just gonna show off the ones I want to show off, which is usually the ones that have Pokemon we haven't seen before. Like, this is a Sandshrew. Sandshrew is a ground type Pokemon, which, as I said before, is weak to water type Pokemon, but what I didn't say is that there are actually immunities. Ground types are immune to electric type attacks, meaning it won't have any effect at all, not just resistance. Meaning that for the entirety of this gym, Pikachu is gonna be useless because his useful attacks won't have any effect on the Pokemon here. However, Squirtle with his water type attack is gonna be very useful because, once again, Brock's Pokemon are all rock and ground type. Both of which are weak to water, and if you went with Bulbasaur, both of which are also weak to grass type attacks. However, if you chose Charmander as your starter, you can have a difficult time because rocks are resistant to fire type attacks, also to normal type attacks. So if that is the case, I recommend doing what I did and catch a Mankey. Mankey now has a fighting type move by the name of Low Kick, and fighting type attacks are good against rock type Pokemon. So you can do either that, or you can fight a lot of random wild Pokemon with Charmander, so it levels up high enough so that the disadvantage won't even matter, but that takes a while and that's really boring, so I always try to avoid having to do that. But luckily it's always an option for the people who don't know how to play smart. That wasn't meant as an insult, because to be able to fully utilize that sort of strategy you need to know all the type matchups, so what type of attacks will have what effects on what type of Pokemon. And then you also need to know the type of the Pokemon you're fighting, which, I mean, you can always use the internet, but as far as in-game goes, yeah, I think you can look up the typing of a Pokemon without having to catch it in the Pokédex. However, then you still need to know the type matchup, and the only way you're gonna find that out is by trial and error. You have to use that type attack on that Pokemon and see what the effect will be. Will it say nothing? Will it say it's super effective? Or will it say it's not very effective? Again, that's if you play the game without using the internet and looking up the typings and looking up what is good against what. But anyway, we just defeated our first gym leader, Brock, so he gives us the Boulder Badge. But wait, there's more. He also gives us a TM. TMs are pretty much moves to give to Pokemon. If a Pokemon doesn't learn a certain move naturally, if you have the TM of that move, you can give that move to that Pokemon anyway without it being able to learn it naturally, but for that it needs to be able to learn that TM. So if you have the TM for Flamethrower, you're still not gonna be able to give that to Squirtle just because it's not applicable. And just like it's predetermined that what Pokemon will learn what moves at what levels, it's also the same that it's predetermined that what Pokemon will be able to learn which TMs. But enough about that, we're getting something new, something that Generation 3 introduces. It's the running shoes. Now we no longer have to slowly walk everywhere, we can just use the B button to run. So I'm glad that's a thing, but I also wish we could have gotten it earlier into the game. But we have it now, so that's all that matters, and for some reason there's an instruction with how to use shoes. I don't know why that's regardless, we're coming up to another trainer route, so first I'm going back to the Poké Center to heal up, and as soon as I exit the Poké Center, I already would have been through that route fighting all the trainers I don't want to show off. I already explained all of this, but first I'm gonna buy a few things, and with a few things I mean one Pokeball. There's other stuff we can buy here, a potion that restores our health, all kinds of items against status effects. There's also an escape rope, which when you use it inside a cave or a dungeon, you automatically exit that dungeon. And a repel, which when you use it, you get 100 steps that won't be able to trigger a random battle. Though I think with the weaker repels, they can still trigger random battles with higher leveled Pokemon. And later on in the game I actually want to buy a whole bunch of things, so I kinda want to save up on money, so I'm not gonna keep buying a whole bunch of repels just so I won't run into random battles. So I do it the same I already explained with the cheats and the such. But anyway, as we just exited the Pokemon Center, we edited to a point where I already went through Route 3 and fought the trainers I don't want to show off. I already explained all of this, but I'm doing it again just to be sure. And my Pokemons are of higher levels, yadi da di da. Hi, I like shorts. They're delightfully comfy and easy to wear. That trainer is rather infamous for having such a weird excuse for challenging you to a battle. He didn't even challenge us, he just talked about shorts and suddenly we're fighting as Rat. We ran into Rattata earlier. He's a normal type, so low kick and karate chop, which we now have, will do the job just fine. Because once again they're both fighting type moves and they're super effective against normal type Pokemon. In fact, it's normal type's only weakness, but they don't have any resistances, so their only advantage is that there is one type they're immune to. Now our opponent is about to send out an Ekans, which is a poison type. Poison types are resistant to fighting type moves, so I switched Monk Woman to Pikachu, or Mascot. Also, fun fact, Ekans is snake, spelled backwards. Now for a few more things about the battles I need to explain. One, if you're fighting a trainer who has multiple Pokemons and he's about to send out the next Pokemon, the game will also ask you if you want to switch Pokemon. Of course, you can also switch the Pokemon at other moments, but this will take up a turn, so you won't be able to attack the same turn and your opponents pretty much get a free hit. And I also really haven't discussed the losing condition. Once you run out of all your Pokemon, you will be sent back to the Poké Center and you will lose some of your money. So if your Pokemon are running low on health, I recommend using a potion or going all the way back to the Poké Center. Going back to the Poké Center takes a bit more time, but it's also free. Potions cost money, but you can also use them during the battle. However, just like switching Pokemon, using an item also takes up a turn, so you won't be able to attack. Also, a thing about the overworld, see these ledges here, which you can't see right now because I'm in the menu, but these ledges, if you jump off of them, well, they're pretty much a one-way ticket. You can only go down, you can't go up when you see those. So these things actually make backtracking easier than making progress, because when you're going back you can just jump off the ledge and you can avoid the tall grass. Ah, new Pokemon, a Spearow. It's a flying normal type and it's pretty much an uglier version of Pidgey, but because it's flying it's weak to electric type moves. Also, flying types are resistant to fighting type attacks, but because it's also part normal, fighting types will just do neutral damage. However, because it's a flying type, it most likely also has flying type attacks, and fighting types are weak to flying type attacks, so still not a good idea to send out Mankey here. Now Mascot has leveled up and now he's reached level 11, so he can learn Quick Attack. However, a Pokemon can only learn 4 moves at a time, so we have to delete one in order to make room for Quick Attack. Quick Attack is pretty much like Tackle, however it is a priority move, meaning that regardless of the Pokemon's speed it will always go first, unless the opponent Pokemon uses a move of a higher priority. But because there really aren't that many moves that have priority, it's usually a good idea to use just any sort of priority move if you want to move before your opponent does. Man, I'm just explaining so many things today, it's great. What else can I explain? Look, a female trainer, let's talk about Pokemon genders. Other than there being a few genderless Pokemon, all Pokemon are either male or female, which doesn't really do a whole lot unless you're trying to get them to breed with each other. Though in some cases gender decides what a Pokemon is gonna evolve into. But anyway, in the first original Generation 1 of Pokemon, not the Generation 3 remake I'm playing right now, there were no genders, which is kind of funny when you consider there's a Generation 1 Pokemon called Mr. Mime. But nowadays it can be a female, so it will still be called Mr. Mime. But yeah, genders weren't added until Generation 2. However, there is one case of Generation 1 Pokemon that has a gender, and we'll be seeing that one in about a few minutes. Epic foreshadowing. And okay, never mind, I just looked at what the opponent is gonna send out, so we're gonna talk about it right now. This is Nidoran Female. Yes, the female is actually part of its name. There is also Nidoran Male, and they were the first generation, or the only Generation 1 Pokemon to actually have a gender. However, where all other Pokemon don't really change depending on their gender with a few exceptions, these are considered entirely different species that just happen to have the same name, one being male and one being female. They still have similarities, but we'll be seeing that later on. Well, actually we won't, so I'm just gonna tell you right now, their evolutions are also just alike, so they're pretty much male and female counterparts of each other. But again, they're just two entirely different species that where the first evolution has the same name for some reason. Oh, it's also a poison type, and I think it has the ability Poison Sting, so when we use a contact making move we have a chance of getting poisoned. Oh, and by the way, what ability the Pokemon has is pretty much determined by the species of Pokemon. A lot of Pokemon can only have one ability, but also a lot of others can have one of either two abilities. So for example, Nidoran can have the Poison Sting ability, but also in Generation 4 it might have the Rivalry ability. I don't think that ability was in Generation 3, so I think all the Nidorans here have Poison Sting. But what I mean is that those are their options of abilities, they won't have both of them at the same time. And which one it will have is just decided by a random number generator. Just like a lot of things in Pokemon, but I'll explain those later on, like natures. But what it comes down to is that even if a Pokemon is the same species, the same gender and the same level, there can still be a lot of differences, like abilities and, as I said, natures, and there's also something as IVs, which I really don't want to explain. But I will, just not right now. In the meantime, we have another female trainer, which is going to send out a Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff isn't really relevant right now, but in Generation 6 it will be changed from a normal type to a fairy type, because the fairy type was added in the 6th generation of Pokemon, but right now it doesn't really exist, but I just wanted to point it out that this Jigglypuff will change. Right now it's still just a normal type until Generation 6, which only came out last year, so then it will be a normal fairy type. Which is a little strange, because usually they don't like to change anything of Pokemon between generations in, other than which moves they can learn. Because obviously they always add a bunch of new moves and also abilities. But other than that, it's rare that they will change things. But what is this? A random battle? Yes, because I actually want to catch this Nidoran male. In hindsight, I probably would have preferred a female Nidoran just because I like its design better, but I'm fine with Nidoran male. Once again, it's a poison type Pokemon, but it also has Peck, which is a flying type move, and pretty soon it will also learn a fighting type move, so I like having this for the attack variety. Because Pokemon don't only learn the type of moves of the type that they are, they can learn all kinds of different moves. However, there is such a thing as same type attack bonus or stab attack, which means that a poison type move will be stronger when used by a poison type Pokemon, and this is the same for all other moves. Water moves are stronger when used by water type Pokemon, etc, etc. But we got ourselves a Nidoran, and it's such an adorable little fuck. Actually, I like the male Nidoran better, but in terms of its evolutions, I like the female Nidoran better, but it doesn't matter now. So now let's go to the... oh, motherfucker. See, this is what it's gonna look like if you're gonna run into random battles all the time, which isn't very fun to watch as a let's play, so that's why I got them all out. I already said all of this. Fucking Jigglypuff. I'll make your Jiggly's puff. It sounds weird. Anyway, I called my Nidoran Venenum because it sounds like venom, and actually it's just Latin for poison. Just like a lot of my Pokemon names are just gonna be named after Latin words. However, we're out of time for now, so join me next time when we're going for our first cave dungeon of the game. It's Mount Moon. See you then.